Niger State with a view to serve as a comprehensive guidelines in addressing the challenge or the climax of the event.
Your Excellency, before I end my speech, allow me to plead and ask Nigerians and call on all of them in helping to keep peace in our dear country.
Our government will continue to support and partner with foreign and local NGOs as well as medical service providers and other stakeholders for delivery of qualitative healthcare services to our people.
Stakeholders from the government, non-governmental organizations and other development partners, as well as academia and the wives of the governors, reaffirmed their commitment to partner with the foundation in raising awareness of the dangers of cancer and other related diseases, as well as ways to mitigating the challenge in order to safeguard the health of women and children in Nigeria. In Mina, Niger State, Aliu Kabir, NTA News.
More on gender affairs, the Nigerian Air Force Officers' Wives Association, NAFOA, has made available empowerment materials for some women and youths in Maiduguri in order to help them to rebuild their lives after the insurgency. NAFOA National President Hafsat Sadiq Abubakar said the empowerment is part of the association's skills acquisition and vocational training program. Isaac Nkuma reports.
About a year and a half ago, the major concern in Maiduguri was the security of the residents and their property from Boko Haram terrorists. Now that the situation is under control, reviving commercial activities is still a work in progress. The Nigerian Air Force Officers' Wives Association, NAFOA, has set the ball rolling with the training of 155 women and youths drawn from military formations and some communities in Borno State in various vocational skills.
I want to encourage you to see this as a new beginning. Continue to work hard and develop yourselves and make sure all the knowledge acquired are put on to good use.
I know that this program will ripple effect will be felt in the community, the state and the nation as a whole.
Empowering youths through skills development strengthens their capacity to help address the many challenges facing the Northeast, especially Borno State.
Some of the beneficiaries are women who lost their husbands in the fight against insurgency.
Like before, we used to stay at home doing nothing, but now that we have this job, at least we can have some improvement in life.
NAFOA had carried out similar training in Makurdi and Lagos, with one still ongoing in Kaduna. From Maiduguri, Isaac Nkuma, NTA News.
Pope Francis officially declares Mother Teresa a saint 19 years after her death. The Catholic Church recognized and honored Mother Teresa for her contributions to the well-being of the poor and destitute. Pope Francis pronounced the rite of canonization at a mass in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City. Musa Baba Aliyu reports.
Prayer for divine assistance. And have sought the counsel of many of our brother bishops.
After due deliberation and frequent prayer for divine assistance and having sought the counsel of many of our brother bishops, we declare and define Blessed Teresa of Calcutta to be a saint. These are the words of Pope Francis as the Church honored Mother Teresa at a mass in St. Peter's Square. The canonization of Mercy Day, of whom Mother Teresa is widely considered as one of the greatest of the time. During her lifetime, St. Teresa worked in slums, teaching poor children and treating the sick at homes. She also set up homes for prostitutes, battered women, orphanages, and houses for those suffering from AIDS. At a canonization mass attended by hundreds of missionaries of charity sisters alongside 1,500 homeless people and 13 heads of state and government, the World Catholic family honored Mother Teresa as an icon for the Church.
Madre Teresa, in tutta la sua esistenza.
John Paul II in 2003 beatified St. Teresa after a first miracle was attributed to her answering an Indian woman's prayers to cure her brain tumor. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
And Oyeyemi Ajayi captured Mother Teresa's journey to sainthood in this report.
Born in August 26, 1910, Agnes Gonje Bojaziu was the youngest of 3 children of an Albanian builder in Macedonia. In 1928, she became a novitiate in Ireland of the Loreto Order, which ran mission schools in India, and this was where she got the name Sister Teresa. She became known as Mother Teresa in 1937 after she took her final vows. While riding a train to the mountain town of Darjeeling, she received a call within a call from Jesus to serve him among the poorest of the poor in September 10, 1946. Mother Teresa moved to Kolkata slums in 1948 to set up her first school. She officially founded the Missionaries of Charity in October 7, 1950 as a religious congregation. She won her first prize for her humanitarian works in 1962, and in 1979 she won the Nobel Peace Prize, and over the years she used money from such prizes to found dozen new homes. She persuaded Israelis and Palestinians to stop shooting, and this gave her long time to rescue about 37 children from a hospital besieged in Beirut in 1982. She had a heart attack in 1983 while visiting St. John Paul II in Rome. She suffered from pneumonia in 1991, leading to congestive heart failure, and was hospitalized in La Jolla, California. In September 5, 1997, Mother Teresa died in Kolkata, where she was given a state funeral. She was cleared for canonization in 2015 after Pope Francis declared that the cure of a Brazilian man suffering from brain abscesses was miraculous. In September 4, 2016 will be added to history as the day Mother Teresa was declared a saint.
Nigerians have been told to collectively support government policies and programs to stop criminalities and fast-track the socio-economic and political growth of the nation. Reverend William Okoye of All Christian Fellowship Mission said this in Abuja while speaking on contemporary social problems and their impact on national development. Basi Taima has more.
Improper management of the nation's human and natural resources, insurgency in the northeast, and militancy in the Niger Delta have been identified as factors militating against rapid socio-economic development of Nigeria. Concerned by these challenges, Reverend says the time has come for Nigerians to see peace and national development as a collective responsibility, noting that whatever the country is passing through today is a build-up from successive administrations.
Government have their role to play, but we all individually have our role to play. And when each one of us take responsibility to play our role in our own little way and corner, those things add up to bring the stability we are believing God.
Reverend Okoye also stressed the need for Nigerians to be their brothers' keepers in order to create an enabling environment for peace to thrive. He advised religious leaders to see themselves as a support system to their members, noting that an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
At this critical time in our nation, let us make as our high priority taking care of our members so that we can reduce tension in the society.
Basi Taikbang, NTA News.
And from religious reports to politics, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu has emerged the standard bearer for the All Progressives Congress, the APC, for the Ondo State governorship election. Election Committee and Jigawa State Governor Mohammed Badaru said Oluwarotimi Akeredolu polled 669 votes to beat his closest rival, Olusegun Abraham, who polled 636 votes. The president has described as sadly out of tune with reality the published letter from U.S. Congressman Tom Marino to Secretary of State John Kerry asking the U.S. to withhold security assistance to Nigeria on the strength of some imaginary infraction by the Buhari administration. In a statement issued in Abuja, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said Congressman Marino was poorly informed about the issues he commented on, wondering why he did not take the pains to get first-hand information from the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria or any other credible source before engaging in what is nothing but a propaganda born out of his own imagination. The minister said by asking the U.S. to refrain from selling warplanes and other military equipment to Nigeria based on a faulty premise, the congressman had demonstrated a poor understanding of global security issues. He said Boko Haram insurgency, which Nigeria has decisively dealt with under President Muhammadu Buhari, is not just a Nigerian problem but a regional and global crisis, saying Congressman Marino definitely does not have Nigeria in mind when he wrote that the U.S. should withhold security assistance to Nigeria until President Muhammadu Buhari demonstrates a commitment to inclusive government and the most basic tenets of democracy, freedom to assemble and freedom of speech. The Muhammadu Buhari administration, the minister maintained, operates purely on the basis of respect for the rule of law and strict adherence to constitutional order, and not a regime that had penchant to deny citizens of their constitutionally guaranteed rights, adding that the present administration does not need the goading of Congressman Marino or anyone, for that matter, to do what is right. Concerning the running of an inclusive government, the minister wondered if Congressman Marino did his homework before dispatching his letter, saying he would have realized that no part of the country is left out in the distribution of political appointments, specifically and the appointment of ministers, which was done in accordance with the Constitution that mandates the President to appoint at least one minister from each of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The minister described Congressman Marino's description of the administration's anti-corruption efforts as selective, as a tired argument that clearly shows that the U.S. lawmaker must have appended his signature to someone's concocted story. He said Nigeria is delighted that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, to whom the congressman addressed his letter, is more knowledgeable, better briefed, and definitely is more aware of Nigerian issues. You're watching the news on Nta International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. We have more reports after the break. Don't go away.
We from the APC, from day one, with the intention of changing the direction of Nigeria. We believe Nigeria is an African power and can be a major powerhouse in world affairs. But to do that, we need to change our direction.
It can be done. This country cannot be written off. It can be done. And this country will still lead Africa. We're making steps, slow steps, moving on. I mean, it took the Americans 200 plus years to get where they are. We're moving.
Good to know you're still watching the news. And for stories from the financial sector, Chiazalam Ekie has packaged.
Secretary General of Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, Muhammad Sanusi Barakindo, has declared his support for Nigeria's ongoing efforts to diversify the economy and expanding the agricultural sector. According to OPEC chief, the future of Nigeria looks bright, particularly if the continued pace of diversification in Nigeria can be sustained. In the meantime, cement dealers in Nigeria have expressed concern over the recent increase in the retail price of cement. They say the hike had caused a lull in their business and has reduced their daily sales. They also called for the construction of more cement factories and revitalizing those that are moribund. And finally, the World Bank has approved a $15 million support facility for Ghana's debt and public investment management. The facility is to strengthen Ghana's institutional capacity in domestic revenue mobilization and public investment management. Ghana became a lower middle income country after rebasing its economy in 2010. The same year, it commenced commercial oil production. Chiazalam Ekie, NTA News.
World economic issues are at the heart of discourse for the business 20 as global leaders meet at the city of Hangzhou, China for the G20 summit. Julieta Aino reports that the discourse will make recommendations to the G20, noting that several meetings are being held ahead of the main summit to help policymakers to decide the fate of the world economic growth.
The first G20 summit to be hosted by the People's Republic, the Chinese government is not taking any chances. Security has been raised to the highest level. More than 150 checkpoints have been set up around the city of Hangzhou. Certain areas have been closed up entirely and traffic is being rerouted until the end of the G20. As security forces maintain what they called standard procedure in high-profile events, those tasked with saving the declining global economy are also hard at work. Secretary and Development Angel Gurria raised issues of low economic growth, low interest rates, and low productivity as the most pressing issues for policymakers to pay close attention to.
The other worrying issue, at no point in the past 30 years has productivity growth been lower. It's been dropping and is now as low as it has been. And at no point over the same period has inequality been higher. So what we have is this conjunction that forces us to look at the question of the productivity / inclusiveness nexus. We have to look at the issues of policies, the decision-making that connect these two in order to move them both at the same time, both to reinforce each other rather than only focus either on productivity or on the redistribution aspect, which is the inclusiveness.
President of the organization, now described as China's new World Bank, the Asia Infrastructure and Investment Bank AIIB Lin Linchu, also took advantage of the high-profile gathering in Hangzhou to call for more countries to join the founding member countries of the Financial House, which has already approved investments in 4 major projects. He said 20 more countries have recently applied for membership.
所以这个议题其实远远不是简单的我们讲的。
AIIB President Lin said infrastructure development, which the AIIB represents, is a good solution to the economic slowdown in both developed and developing countries. From Beijing, China, Julieta Aino, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping has urged G20 and contributes to the world economic growth as well as the resolution of global issues. President Xi, who was addressing the Business 20 Summit ahead of the G20 Summit in the city of Hangzhou, called for more alignments between the G20 and B20 for a more focused global economic development, even as the IMF declares 2016 the lowest economic growth year since the big financial crisis. Julieta Ano again reports.
Marking a successful end to the first order of world business in China's city of Hangzhou ahead of the G20 summit, a policy recommendation paper was presented to Chinese President Xi Jinping to mark the end of the opening of the Business 20 summit, also known as the B20. A forum for the international business community to participate in global economic governance plus international economic and trade regulation, the B20 supports the G20 through the hosting of policy discussions and proposing of recommendations for a sustainable and balanced global economic growth. In his keynote speech, President Xi said global economic governance should aim for sharing and IMF chief Christine Lagarde called on leaders of countries and businesses to carry out strong measures to stimulate growth to boost weak global economic activities.
All tools should be used by the policymakers in a good dialogue with the representatives of the business community, of the labor associations, and of the civil society representatives, in order to stimulate the growth, which has to be not only strong, balanced, and sustainable, but also inclusive.
World Bank President Jim Young between international economy and private sector, which he said can facilitate an end to extreme poverty.
Now, if you look at the infrastructure gap in the world it's about $1 trillion. Just in sub-Saharan Africa, it's about $90 billion. But there's no question that we have a long way to go in terms of building the infrastructure that developing countries need to grow their economies.
After more deliberations and proposals to boost shared prosperity, the World Trade Organization and other economic leaders welcomed the B20 policy recommendations.
I strongly welcome the recommendations of the B20 because they are very pointed and they go to points which I think are extremely important, starting with the call to deal with some of the outstanding issues in global trade, like agriculture and agricultural subsidies. Members are still trying to handle that, not easy. The call for strengthening the trading system and delivering new trade reforms, I think those things are critical.
Since 2010, more than 400 policy recommendations have been made by the B20, many of which have been incorporated into previous G20 communiques. From Beijing, China, Julieta Aino, NTA News.
Now to trending stories on the global scene with Uche Nwizu.
Mali's President Ibrahim